She called the HOA to report my garage door being open, so I closed it, with her brand new luxury SUV still inside, and left for 2 weeks. What I came back to would change our neighborhood forever. Picture this. I stumble back after pulling a brutal 12-hour shift wiring commercial panels, boots heavy with exhaustion, and discover her gleaming white crossover occupying the exact center of my tool sanctuary. The scent of premium upholstery clashing with grease, security system blaring, and when I politely request removal, she flashes phony emergency protocols while lecturing me about neighborly solidarity. 42 days forward, I held the deed to her residence while she left desperate recordings pleading with me to halt the foreclosure proceedings as our entire community observed. But before I explain precisely how her unauthorized control scheme bankrupted her completely, answer this. Have you ever been bulldozed by someone wielding minor authority simply because they possess that power? Comment your city below. I'm tracking how many of us refuse further submission. I'm Jake Morrison, and 24 months back, I believe purchasing my starter home in Willowbrook Estates represented the American dream fulfilled. 34 years old, licensed electrician, solo father to 8-year-old Emma, who visits alternate weekends. 6 years hoarding every extra dollar, surviving on budget meals like gourmet cuisine, sacrificing everything for a humble 3-bedroom featuring the true treasure, a double bay workspace I could transform into my personal shop. That workspace became my refuge. Sawdust aroma mingling with electrical wire, Grandpa's worn bench holding tools that constructed actual infrastructure. Room enough to build Emma's backyard fort without busybodies scrutinizing boundary markers. Recently inherited modest funds from Grandpa too, finally capital for genuine upgrades instead of fantasizing. The doors closing rumble each night sealed my universe from the subdivision circus outside. Willowbrook appeared ideal. Middle-income residences constructed between 2015 and 2018, young households mixed with retirees, 180 monthly association dues covering basic maintenance. Straightforward regulations, I assumed. Maintain trimmed lawns, avoid fluorescent exteriors, labor diligently, respect boundaries. Then Brenda Whitfield entered my life and taught me that straightforward never existed in her dictionary. Brenda's 52 pilots that $60,000 crossover like battlefield artillery, occupies the corner estate with a sweeping driveway broadcasting, acknowledge my dominance. She's association treasurer, apparently translating to suburban dictator of aesthetic perfection. Her spouse, Brad, administers municipal development, a credential she weaponizes constantly like conversational ammunition. Visualize this. Perpetually styled hair, luxury brands exclusively, radiating a coldness that could freeze Death Valley midsummer. The variety of woman who measures your turf height while faking exercise routines with her boutique canine. My initial Brenda interaction occurred 6 months post-move-in. I was mounting security fixtures for elderly Mrs. Chen, helping her feel protected following local burglaries, when abruptly this shadow materializes above my workspace. Aggressive tap of costly footwear on pavement, suffocating perfume cloud probably exceeding my vehicle payment. Pardon me, clipboard gripped like sacred text, but I observed no authorization posted for this electrical installation. I clarified that exterior lighting requires no permits, displayed my state credentials, offered to discuss safety standards. Her reply, I'll require verification from my spouse. We absolutely cannot tolerate questionable tradespeople jeopardizing our equity values. The manner she articulated questionable tradespeople, like my 12 years of certified expertise and work hardened palms meant zero because I operated a service truck instead of leasing European prestige. That acidic taste of dismissal became my official Willowbrook greeting. Across 18 months, she elevated suburban surveillance into theatrical performance. Morning rounds with her infraction journal documenting violations like children's bicycles on concrete or receptacles collected 11 minutes beyond deadline. This woman converted association enforcement into her personal campaign against anyone actually earning their living. Yet her concentrated attention targeted residents failing her community blueprint. Mrs. Chen received citations for aesthetically disruptive displays, her deceased veteran husband's commemorative chimes, Tom Rodriguez faced penalties for driveway parking his service vehicle because commercial transport degrades residential character. The clicking of Brenda's heels became our block's alarm system. Children vanished like frightened sparrows. Curtains twitched anxiously. Everyone held their breath praying she'd continue past without stopping to measure something with her pocket ruler. Emma, with that brutal 8-year-old candor, once questioned why the attractive, angry woman constantly appears like she detected something foul out of children's mouths. I maintained low visibility, mostly adhering to every microscopic rule, trimming grass to exactly 2.75 inches, leaving my work van streetside to deny her leverage. But that Tuesday night, arriving home depleted from a 12-hour assignment, I discovered Brenda had apparently decided my workshop constituted shared community space. That Tuesday night, I returned to my driveway at 7:30 following emergency generator installation for a medical facility, one of those assignments where human lives genuinely depend on flawless execution. My protective boots felt like iron anchors. My equipment harness had carved permanent indentations across my shoulders, and my sole desire was retrieving a cold beverage and inspecting the fort project I'd been constructing for Emma. Instead, I encountered Brenda Whitfield's pro crossover station dead center in my workspace like she possessed ownership rights. Not partially obstructing, not compressed to one edge, dead center with perhaps 6 inches margin each side, positioned so immaculately that opening her doors would damage my workbench. Her vehicle's leather scent merged with my motor lubricant and sawdust, generating this bizarre collision of luxury and honest labor that nauseated me. I stood motionless for 30 full seconds, remote in hand, questioning whether exhaustion was triggering hallucinations. The alarm chirped once, that arrogant little electronic declaration saying, "I belong here and you're trespassing." I circled to my entrance, where I located Brenda herself occupying one of my patio chairs like she was hosting committee proceedings. Immaculately dressed despite August's humid evening, scrolling her device with the casual indifference of someone who'd never questioned their entitlement to any territory they chose. "Excuse me," I maintained level tone, "but there's an automobile in my workspace." She glanced up with that rehearsed smile. "Oh, Jake, my driveway undergoes sealing tomorrow morning. Emergency circumstances, and the association emergency parking provision allows temporary utilization of available areas during community maintenance." I retrieved my device and scrolled through association documents while she observed with amusement like I was a toddler attempting adult literature. "Ma'am, I observe no emergency parking provision in these documents." "Well," she rose, adjusting her skirt, "I'm presently reviewing the bylaws for necessary amendments. Consider this a pilot initiative for community collaboration during infrastructure improvements. Here's where most individuals would have lost composure and committed foolish actions. But 12 years of electrical work teaches patience. One error, and you're deceased." So instead of exploding, I executed something clearly absent from Brenda's playbook. I retrieved my device and began recording. Knowledge is the electrician's first tool. Mistakes kill, so you learn precision. So for clarity, I stated calmly, "You're acknowledging this emergency parking provision doesn't actually exist currently, and you're utilizing my private workspace as experimental implementation without my authorization." Her expression transformed from smug to alarmed in approximately 2 seconds. "You cannot record me without consent." "Actually, I can. We're on my property, and this represents a single-party consent jurisdiction." Knowledge nugget. In most jurisdictions, you can legally record conversations on your own property without the other party's permission, essential for documenting harassment. Takeaway: always verify your state's recording statutes before addressing aggressive neighbors. She attempted grabbing my device, but I retreated. "Brad will learn about this." "Excellent. I'd appreciate hearing the Municipal Development Department's official stance on fabricated association provisions." But Brenda wasn't finished. The following morning, I discovered an official association violation notice attached to my entrance. Failure to maintain community standards. Workspace left accessible overnight, creating visual disruption. Fine $75, escalating to $200 if unresolved within 48 hours. There was a handwritten attachment. Perhaps next occasion you'll demonstrate more cooperation. B. I contacted my college roommate Derek, now real estate attorney, while examining the notice. Jake, Derek laughed after I read it aloud. She just handed you evidence. She's literally penalizing you for the violation she caused. That's documented harassment and authority abuse. So what's my strategy? Research phase. Association formation documents are a public record at the county office. Determine what authority they actually possess versus what they claim to possess. During my lunch interval, I drove to the county courthouse. The taste of institutional coffee merged with the musty scent of archived filing cabinets as I excavated incorporation paperwork. What I uncovered made me smile for the first time since this commenced. Meanwhile, Brenda was occupied. I returned home to find she'd messaged the entire neighborhood. Urgent community notice. Resident violation creating security concerns due to unsecured workspace overnight. Board reviewing enhanced enforcement procedures. Emma contacted that evening, enthusiastic about her upcoming weekend visit. Daddy, is my Ford going to be ready? We might need to navigate some obstacles, sweetheart. Is the angry lady being angry again? Affirmative, baby. But Daddy's learning how to be angry back the proper way. What Emma didn't realize was that my county research had exposed something Brenda definitely didn't want the neighborhood discovering. Friday morning delivered a new level of audacity I hadn't anticipated even from Brenda. Not only was her crossover still occupying my workspace like some luxury parasite, but she'd brought reinforcements, a sleek black sedan now positioned beside it, consuming every inch of space where my equipment used to exist. I discovered my electrical supply cabinet, containing $3,000 worth of equipment, shoved against the rear wall with a brand new padlock where my lock had been. My tools were scattered across my workbench like someone had been rummaging through a junk drawer, and there was a sticky note on Grandpa's old vise. Temporary relocation for client staging. Community cooperation appreciated. BW, the metallic taste of pure fury filled my mouth, merged with the sharp scent of expensive vehicle leather and whatever luxury perfume she'd sprayed around my workspace like territorial marking. Instead of executing what every fiber of my being demanded, which involved those bolt cutters hanging on my wall, I executed something that would injure Brenda more than any tool could. I contacted the non-emergency police line. Hello, I'd like to report a trespassing situation and possible theft of personal property. Officer Martinez arrived 20 minutes later, a solid guy who appeared experienced with suburban drama. After documenting everything with photographs, he stated something that improved my day. Sir, this appears like harassment to me. Mind if I have a conversation with the vehicle owner? Observing Brenda attempt explaining to an officer why she possessed the right to padlock someone else's equipment in their own workspace was like witnessing a master class in how not to address police. Her voice escalated with each excuse, her hands fluttered like disoriented birds, and Officer Martinez's expression grew more dubious by the minute. Ma'am, he finally stated, property deed supersedes association agreement every occasion. You might want to remove your vehicles before this becomes a criminal matter. That afternoon, I drove to the county surveyor's office with a mission. I recalled Derek mentioning once during our college days that property deeds always supersede association plat maps in legal disputes. The deed describes exactly what you own, while association maps are often based on preliminary surveys that don't reflect final construction. Your deed is the ultimate legal authority over your property, not what any association claims on their maps. The clerk, a helpful woman named Janet, who'd clearly witnessed her share of property disputes, retrieved my lot survey with the enthusiasm of someone about to deliver Christmas morning news. Oh honey, she stated, indicating the screen, you own 18 inches more toward the street than your association thinks you do. See this line here? That's your actual boundary. Your workspace is completely on your own property. The original developer had sold me the property with clear title to the entire workspace footprint, but the association's formation documents used an outdated preliminary survey that was legally worthless. I departed that office feeling like I'd just discovered the cheat code to Brenda's game. By Saturday, Brenda had escalated to full neighborhood social media warfare. She called an emergency association board meeting for Monday night with a notice that resembled more a court summons. Urgent property boundary dispute requiring immediate resolution. She also launched a Facebook campaign that would make political operatives envious. Her post about some residents who prioritize vacation over community safety got shared to 3 neighborhood groups. But her strategy backfired spectacularly. Mrs. Chen commented with a detailed account of Brenda's harassment campaign. Tom Rodriguez shared photographs of his own fraudulent violation notices. Sarah Mitchell posted a screenshot of the actual association bylaws, proving most of Brenda's rules existed only in her imagination. My personal favorite comment came from Janet Martinez, Officer Martinez's wife. As it turned out, funny how some people think badges give them the right to other people's property. Sunday morning brought Brenda's most desperate maneuver yet. I woke to find a municipal towing notice attached to my work van. Apparently, it violated commercial vehicle restrictions and would be towed Thursday morning. The beautiful irony, my van was parked legally on a public street where I'd specifically positioned it to avoid any association issues. But Brenda's spouse, Brad, had pulled strings at municipal development to manufacture a violation that didn't exist. Emma contacted that evening, practically bouncing through the phone with enthusiasm. Daddy, can we work on my fort this weekend? Absolutely, sweetheart. And I think we might build it even larger than we originally planned. How come? Because Daddy learned something very interesting about our backyard. Turns out we own more of it than some people think we do. What I didn't tell Emma was that her Innocent Fort project was about to become the perfect demonstration of exactly where my property lines genuinely were and who actually possessed the legal right to be there. Monday evening arrived with all the drama of a neighborhood soap opera. I entered the Willowbrook Elementary cafeteria for the emergency association meeting to find only 3 people seated at a folding table that appeared borrowed from a church basement sale. Brenda sat in the center wearing a navy blazer that screamed, "I'm commanding here," flanked by 2 bored allies I'd never actually encountered before. Harold something or other, a retiree who nodded at everything Brenda stated like a dashboard bobblehead, and Patricia whoever, a woman who appeared professionally trained to purse her lips in disapproval. The cafeteria still smelled like today's lunch special, that unmistakable aroma of institutional macaroni mixed with industrial floor cleaner. It was about to smell considerably worse for Brenda. "Where's everyone else?" I asked, retrieving my phone to begin recording. "The other board members couldn't attend tonight," Brenda stated with that practiced smile. "But we have a quorum, so we can proceed with essential business." I seated myself in one of those tiny plastic chairs designed for second graders, my knees practically touching my chin. The sound of the chair creaking under my weight echoed through the empty cafeteria like a warning shot. "First order of business," she announced. "Motion to clarify parking enforcement procedures in light of recent non-compliance issues." She slid a typed document across the table, 3 pages of legal-sounding nonsense that basically stated the association could penalize anyone for anything related to vehicular storage creating visual disruption to community standards. The motion included retroactive fines for unauthorized workspace usage patterns dating back 60 days, $800. "You're attempting to penalize me $800 for how I use my own workspace?" I asked. "Community standards affect all property values," Harold bobbled enthusiastically. That's when I recalled something Derek had drilled into me during our college study sessions. Most association boards never file proper insurance for the powers they claim to possess. Without insurance, individual board members become personally liable for any damages their decisions cause. Your insurance policy is your legal shield, but only if it actually covers what you're doing. "I'd like to see the association incorporation documents," I stated, "and your insurance policy covering these enforcement powers." The silence that followed was so thick you could have carved it like Thanksgiving turkey. Patricia's lips pursed tighter, Brenda's smile faltered, and Harold stopped bobbling entirely. The fluorescent lights above us hummed like angry hornets trapped in a jar. "Those documents are being reviewed by our legal counsel," Brenda finally managed. "No problem," I stated, retrieving the papers I brought. "I've got copies right here from the county filing office." I spread out the association incorporation documents and insurance policy on the tiny table. Brenda's face went from confident pink to worried pale in approximately 3 seconds. According to your insurance policy, I continued, the association specifically excludes coverage for board members' personal business activities, like using community resources for real estate staging. Furthermore, I stated, opening another folder, I've documented $23,000 in financial discrepancies over the past 18 months. The pattern was beautiful in its criminal simplicity. Storm cleanup billed to the association, but performed by city crews for free. Landscape consultations charged to community funds, but done through Brenda's private company. Emergency tree removal that cost us $8,400 for trees the city had removed at no charge. But here's what I hadn't expected to uncover. The real twist that made my electrician's heart sing. MRS. Whitfield, I stated, retrieving one final document. Did you know your spouse's municipal development emails are subject to public records requests? The color drained from her face faster than water down a broken drain. I read from Brad's official email. Problem properties requiring community pressure to improve neighborhood composition. Target working class homeowners for maximum leverage. Harold's mouth fell open like a broken door. Patricia actually gasped, and Brenda appeared like someone had just informed her the FBI was outside. That's taken out of context, she whispered. There's more, I stated. Wife staging business needs 3-month access cycles. Recommend escalating association pressure on Morrison property for optimal client presentation timeline. The taste of victory was better than Grandpa's homemade apple pie, sweet with just a hint of justice. This meeting is over, Brenda stated, standing so rapidly her chair fell backward with a metallic crash that echoed through the empty cafeteria. But as I walked to my vehicle, I had no idea that Brenda's desperation was about to reach levels that would make tonight's revelations look like a friendly neighborhood chat. The next morning brought a phone call that changed everything. Jake, you need to sit down for this, Derek stated. His voice had that tone lawyers get when they discovered something that could either make you wealthy or land someone in federal prison. I was in my kitchen staring at my coffee maker and wondering if Brenda's crossover was still squatting in my workspace. Spoiler alert, it was. Remember how I said I'd dig deeper into Brenda's business dealings? Derek continued. Well, I found the smoking gun. Actually, I found the whole arsenal. He'd spent the night running Brenda's real estate license through the state database, along with cross-referencing her association financial activities with public records. What he discovered made my electrical violations look like parking tickets. First, Derek stated, Brenda's real estate license has 2 pending complaints for misrepresentation, both from elderly clients who claim she manipulated them into selling below market value. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling my kitchen with a rich aroma of caffeine salvation. I was going to need it. Second, her property records show she owes $180 more on her mortgage than her house is currently worth. She's underwater financially and drowning fast. But the real bombshell was still coming. Third, and this is the significant one, Brad's municipal position is under official ethics review for undisclosed conflicts of interest related to association enforcement activities. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. The smooth ceramic surface suddenly felt slippery in my calloused hands. Someone filed a complaint with the state attorney general's office, Derek continued, about systematic corruption in municipal development departments working with private association boards to manipulate property values. The investigation had been quietly running for 6 months. Brad's email trail was just the evidence they needed to prove coordination between municipal development and private real estate interests using association harassment to force property sales. Derek, I stated, are you telling me that Brenda and Brad are a part of some kind of organized scheme? I'm telling you that your little workspace situation just became Exhibit A in a federal fraud investigation. The implications hit me like a surge through an ungrounded electrical line. Brenda wasn't just a power-hungry neighbor with control issues. She was running a sophisticated property manipulation scheme, using her association position to identify target homeowners, creating artificial violation pressure to force quick sales below market value, then flipping those properties through her real estate business for massive profits. How many other homeowners? I asked. At least 12 in your neighborhood alone, probably dozens across the county. Derek explained how the scheme worked. Brad would identify properties in his municipal development role that were ripe for development or resale. Brenda would manufacture association violations to pressure those specific homeowners into selling. Their combined inside knowledge of zoning changes and development plans made them incredibly effective at targeting the right properties at the right time. Mrs. Chen's memorial chimes weren't just annoying to Brenda's aesthetic sense. They were an excuse to pressure an elderly widow into selling her house 6 months before the city announced plans for a new community center that would boost property values by 30%. Tom Rodriguez's work truck wasn't really a community eyesore. It was parked on a lot that Brad knew would be rezoned for mixed-use development within 2 years. My workspace wasn't just convenient parking for Brenda's staging business. My property sat on a corner lot that would become extremely valuable when the new shopping center got approved next spring. The beautiful part, Derek stated with the satisfaction of a prosecutor who just cracked a major case, is that they documented everything: Brad's emails, Brenda's violation records, even invoices showing her staging company billing clients for access to property she obtained through association pressure. So what happens now? Now you have more power in this situation than Brenda could have ever imagined. She's not just facing association accountability anymore. She's looking at federal fraud charges, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. I disconnected the call and walked out to my workspace where Brenda's crossover still sat like a $40,000 confession letter. But now I understood something that changed my entire strategy. This wasn't about parking. This wasn't about property rights. This was about taking down a criminal enterprise that had been systematically stealing from working families across our entire county. Time to call in some bigger allies. Derek's revelation changed everything. This wasn't neighborhood drama anymore. This was organized crime disguised as suburban governance. And that meant I needed to think bigger than just reclaiming my workspace. I spent Wednesday afternoon assembling what Derek called Team Justice, though honestly it felt more like recruiting for the world's most suburban version of Ocean's 11. First up was Mrs. Chen. I located her in her garden tending to the memorial flowers she'd planted around her late husband's chimes, the ones Brenda had tried to ban as aesthetically inappropriate. Morris, Chen, I stated, how would you feel about helping me expose exactly what Brenda's been doing to this neighborhood? Her weathered hands paused over a rose bush that had been blooming for 40 years. Jake, I've been keeping records since the day that woman showed up at my door with her clipboard. I was hoping someone would eventually ask. She disappeared into her house and returned with a shoebox full of documentation that would make an FBI forensic accountant weep with joy. Every violation notice, every threatening phone call, every time Brenda had photographed her property without permission, all dated, time-stamped, and cross-referenced with neighborhood events. Military training, she explained with a smile that could have powered the neighborhood. My late husband taught me that documentation beats confrontation every time. Next was Tom Rodriguez. I found him in his driveway working on the engine of that work truck Brenda had tried to get towed. The smell of motor oil and determination filled the evening air. Tom, I need someone with your kind of practical expertise. He looked up from under the hood, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen more honest work than Brenda's crossover. You mean someone who knows how to install security equipment without leaving fingerprints? I mean someone who understands how to document things properly. Tom's grin could have lit up the whole street. Brother, I've been waiting for this conversation since the day she tried to penalize me for parking my own truck in my own driveway. Over the next hour, Tom explained his background in military intelligence, how he'd been quietly mapping Brenda's patrol patterns, recording her violation schedule, even documenting which houses she photographed and when. Turns out having a combat veteran with surveillance training living 2 streets over was like having a neighborhood guardian angel with a security clearance. Sarah Mitchell joined our impromptu war council when she showed up with her laptop and the kind of organizational skills that come from managing 33rd graders every day. I've been running the neighborhood Facebook group like an intelligence operation, she stated, pulling up spreadsheets that would impress a data analyst. Every complaint about Brenda, every suspicious association activity, every time someone got a fraudulent violation notice, all cross-referenced and categorized. Derek arrived Thursday evening with a legal strategy that was beautiful in its simplicity. We were going to let Brenda continue digging her own hole while building an airtight case that would protect every homeowner in the county from similar schemes. First, Derek explained, spreading documents across my kitchen table. We file a formal complaint with the state real estate board about Brenda's license violations using Mrs. Chen's documentation. The complaint would trigger an automatic investigation into Brenda's business practices, including her use of association authority to manipulate property sales. Real estate boards take this kind of thing very seriously because it makes their entire industry look corrupt. Second, he continued, we submit Brad's email evidence to the state attorney general's office. They're already investigating municipal corruption. This gives them everything they need to prove conspiracy. Derek had learned from his prosecutor friends that the key to taking down corruption networks is patience. Let them think they're winning while you build overwhelming evidence. Make them confident enough to keep committing crimes while you're recording everything. Third, we prepare a civil lawsuit under federal civil rights statutes, property deprivation, conspiracy to violate civil rights, pattern of harassment targeting specific demographic groups. The civil rights angle was crucial. Brenda hadn't just been randomly harassing homeowners. She'd been systematically targeting working-class families, elderly residents, and anyone who didn't fit her vision of appropriate neighborhood composition. But the real masterstroke was Derek's final suggestion. We're going to use your vacation time. I stared at him like he'd suggested I take up professional alligator wrestling. Think about it, Derek stated. Narcissistic personalities like Brenda need constant control. They can't handle situations they can't manipulate. What happens if you just disappear for a couple weeks? The plan was elegantly simple. I'd take my accumulated vacation time and go camping with Emma, completely off the grid, no cell service, no internet, no way for Brenda to contact or manipulate me. Meanwhile, Tom would house it and document every single thing Brenda did. Mrs. Chen would coordinate with other neighbors to record any escalating behavior. Sarah would monitor social media and keep the neighborhood informed. Without you there to react to, Derek explained, she'll have to show her true colors to everyone else. Narcissists can't help themselves when they think they're winning. The taste of anticipation was like the first bite of perfectly grilled barbecue. This was going to be satisfying in ways Brenda couldn't even imagine. Emma's weekend visit was coming up, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I was genuinely excited to tell her we were going camping for 2 weeks of the most strategic relaxation of my life. Day 3 of our Yellowstone camping trip, and I was teaching Emma how to identify animal tracks by the creek when my satellite emergency communicator buzzed with a message from Tom. She's lost her mind. Call when you can get signal. Emma was building a dam out of smooth river rocks, completely absorbed in her engineering project. The smell of pine needles and mountain air should have been relaxing. Instead, I found myself hiking to higher ground to get cell coverage, wondering what fresh chaos Brenda had unleashed on the neighborhood. Tom answered on the first ring. Jake, brother, this woman is unhinged. Day 1, she tried to access your workspace at 6 a.m. with a crowbar. I sat down on a boulder that had probably been there since the last ice age, watching eagles circle overhead, while Tom described Brenda's escalating desperation. Day 2, she called a locksmith, claimed it was an association emergency inspection for electrical hazards. Locksmith took one look at her story and left. But here's the good part. I got it all on video. Tom had positioned cameras to cover every angle of my property, motion activated, infrared capable, uploading to cloud storage that Brenda couldn't tamper with. Military-grade surveillance disguised as standard home security. Day 3, that's today, she brought City Electrical Inspector Frank Morrison, no relation to you by the way, told him you had dangerous wiring that needed immediate inspection. The beautiful thing about working in the electrical trade for 12 years is that you know every inspector in the county. Frank Morrison was a straight shooter who didn't appreciate being lied to about emergency situations. Frank took one look at her story and asked for the complaint filing number. When she couldn't provide one, he asked who reported the electrical hazard. When she said she did, he asked for her electrical license number. I could picture Brenda's face when she realized she just claimed expertise she didn't possess to a man who'd been inspecting electrical work since before she got her real estate license. Frank told her that filing false electrical emergency reports was a misdemeanor. Then he left, but not before he gave me his card and said to call if she tried anything else. The mountain air was crisp and clean, carrying the sound of Emma's laughter as she tested her rock dam against the creek current. Meanwhile, 200 miles away, Brenda was apparently having a complete meltdown. But Jake, that's not even the worst part. Tom's voice dropped to that tone military guys use when they're about to describe something truly spectacular. Last night around midnight, she tried to jimmy your workspace lock with what looked like a butter knife. I confronted her, and she claimed she heard strange noises and was investigating community safety concerns. Please tell me you recorded that. Brother, I got her on camera attempting breaking and entering while explaining to a Marine veteran how community safety works. It's like watching someone fail a sobriety test while insisting they're the designated driver. Tom had filed a police report for attempted burglary. Officer Martinez took one look at the security footage and recommended that Brenda speak with a lawyer immediately. But her response to getting caught red-handed was even more revealing. She posted on the neighborhood Facebook group at 2 a.m. Tom stated, "Some residents think vacation planning is more important than community safety. Dangerous electrical situations require immediate attention regardless of individual convenience." Sarah Mitchell had screenshot everything before Brenda could delete it. The 2 a.m. timestamp made it clear that she'd posted immediately after getting caught trying to break into my workspace. The neighbors are turning against her, Tom continued. MRS. Patterson from Oak Street commented that maybe people who break into workspaces at midnight aren't the best judges of community safety. Got 47 likes in 6 hours. Derek had called that morning with updates from the legal front. The state real estate board had fast-tracked their investigation after receiving Mrs. Chen's documentation. Brad's municipal position was now under active review by the ethics committee, and the attorney general's office was very interested in Brad's email trail. "One more thing," Tom stated. "She tried to bribe me yesterday. That got my full attention. Eagles could circle all they wanted. This was better than nature documentary. 500 cash just to let her into your workspace for 1 hour to retrieve important staging materials. I told her those staging materials looked suspiciously like your electrical tools." Tom had recorded the entire conversation on his phone, including Brenda's exact words about making my city permit applications much easier if we cooperate. Emma called from the creek, excited about a fish she'd spotted in her rock pool. Her voice echoed off the mountain walls like a reminder of what really mattered: clean air, clear water, and time with people you love. While 200 miles away, a corrupt association treasurer was systematically destroying her own life, trying to steal a workspace that was never hers to begin with. "Tom," I stated, "keep recording everything. I have a feeling she's just getting started." Day 9 of our camping trip, and Emma had just caught her first fish when my satellite communicator buzzed again. This time it was Sarah's number with an urgent message. "Emergency. Brenda hired someone to break in. Police involved. Call ASAP." I helped Emma release her rainbow trout back into the crystal clear mountain stream, watching it dart away toward deeper water. The irony wasn't lost on me that we were practicing catch and release while Brenda was apparently escalating to actual crime. Sarah answered before the first ring finished. "Jake, she's completely lost it. Yesterday she approached Tom with a briefcase full of cash. Today she hired what can only be described as the world's worst burglar." The mountain silence was broken only by the sound of wind through pine trees and my blood pressure climbing toward dangerous levels. Around 2 p.m. today, Tom spotted some guy with bolt cutters trying to cut your workspace lock. When Tom confronted him, the guy claimed to be a licensed contractor working for the association. No permit, no identification, no legitimate paperwork. I could hear the satisfaction in Sarah's voice as she described what happened next. Tom asked to see his contractor's license. Guy couldn't produce one. Tom asked for the association work order. Guy pulled out a handwritten note on Brenda's personal letterhead. Tom called the police. Officer Martinez arrived to find a man with no identification attempting to break into private property with tools that belonged in a prison escape movie. When pressed about who hired him, the guy immediately gave up Brenda's name and phone number. Gets better, Sarah continued. Under questioning, he admitted Brenda paid him $200 cash to retrieve staging materials from a workspace that needed to be accessed for community safety. The criminal conspiracy charges were adding up faster than Emma's collection of interesting rocks. Attempted burglary, conspiracy to commit breaking and entering, filing false reports, and now soliciting criminal activity. But Jake, the nuclear bomb dropped this morning. Sarah's voice had that tone teachers get when they're about to describe the most spectacular classroom disaster of their career. The state attorney general's office executed a search warrant on Brenda's house and real estate office at 6 a.m., with news cameras rolling. I sat down on a fallen log watching Emma skip stones across the lake while trying to process the fact that my neighborhood association drama had apparently escalated to federal law enforcement. Channel 7 was there for the whole thing, Sarah stated. Brenda in her bathrobe screaming about property rights while they carried out boxes of financial records. Brad getting arrested in his municipal development office while his coworkers watched through conference room windows. The investigation had moved faster than anyone expected. Derek's evidence package, combined with Mrs. Chen's meticulous documentation and Tom's security footage, had given prosecutors everything they needed for search warrants. They found everything, Jake, computer files showing the property manipulation scheme, bank records proving she'd been moving association funds through her personal accounts, even a spreadsheet listing target homeowners with notes about pressure points for maximum compliance. Mrs. Chen's name was on that list with notes about elderly widow vulnerable to safety concerns. Tom's entry mentioned working class Hispanic likely to avoid legal confrontation. My file was the most detailed. Single father, electrician, corner lot, high development potential, financial pressure through daughter's needs. The casual racism and classism documented in Brenda's own handwriting was going to make the civil rights case slam dunk simple. There's more, Sarah stated. They arrested 4 other association board members across the county. This wasn't just Willowbrook. This was organized crime using suburban homeowner associations as cover. The scope was staggering. Dozens of neighborhoods, hundreds of manipulated property sales, millions of dollars in fraudulent transactions spanning 5 years. Derek called this morning, Sarah continued. The Attorney General's office wants to interview you when you get back as a witness, not a suspect. You're officially the victim who exposed a federal conspiracy. Emma ran up with a perfect skipping stone, smooth and flat like a tiny pancake. Daddy, look what I found. Want to see how far it goes? Absolutely, sweetheart. While she demonstrated her improved stone skipping technique, Sarah delivered the final update. Oh, and Jake, Brenda called you 17 times yesterday. The voicemails are something special. 17 times. Started demanding, moved to pleading, ended with full sobbing breakdown. She's begging you not to press charges, offering to drop all association claims, even promising to buy your house for above market value if you'll just make this all go away. The mountain lake was mirror smooth, reflecting Emma's delighted face as her stone skipped 7 times before sinking. Pure joy in a place where the air was clean and people couldn't lie to you about fake parking regulations. Sarah, I stated, save those voicemails. I have a feeling they're going to be very useful when we get home. Because in 3 days Emma and I would be heading back to Willowbrook, where a federal investigation was waiting for us, and where Brenda's empire had finally collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. Day 14. Homecoming Day. Emma and I drove back into Willowbrook Estates to find our quiet suburban street transformed into something that looked like a cross between a news event and a block party. 3 news vans lined the curb. Neighbors stood in clusters talking and pointing. And there in the middle of it all was my house with police tape still fluttering around Brenda's abandoned crossover. Daddy, why are there so many people? Emma asked, pressing her face to the car window. Because sometimes when you stand up to bullies, other people pay attention. Tom met us in my driveway with a grin that could have powered the neighborhood, and a folder thick enough to use as a weapon. Welcome home, brother. Hope you're ready for your close-up. He handed me the folder while Emma ran to inspect her Ford in progress. The documentation inside was beautiful. 17 attempts at breaking into my workspace, 3 police reports, 1 arrest, and enough security footage to make a streaming documentary. Channel 7 wants to interview you in an hour, Tom stated. Something about the homeowner who exposed association corruption through strategic vacation planning. The interview setup was in Mrs. Chen's front yard with my workspace visible in the background. Producer wanted the visual of Brenda's crossover, still sitting there like a $40,000 confession letter. 2 weeks of abandonment had not been kind to German luxury engineering. Detective Sarah Rodriguez, no relation to our neighbor Tom, arrived first to walk me through the criminal case timeline. Professional, thorough, and clearly enjoying the fact that a civilian had handed her a federal conspiracy case with a bow on top. M.R. Morrison, your strategic documentation and the evidence gathered by your neighbors has resulted in charges against 14 individuals across 6 counties. This is the largest association fraud case in state history. She explained how the investigation had expanded beyond Brenda and Brad. The property manipulation scheme involved municipal planners, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, and association board members working together to systematically defraud homeowners. Your workspace situation was small potatoes compared to what we found, but it was the thread that unraveled everything. At 5 p.m., neighbors started gathering for what Sarah Mitchell had organized as a community accountability meeting. The Willowbrook Elementary cafeteria was packed with 47 families, local media, and enough righteous anger to power a small city.